public comments. Rules are 3 minutes to speak. State your name and address for the record. If you're speaking on behalf of the group, you get 5 minutes. If you're getting close to your 3 or 5 minutes, the chair may recognize you have 30 extra seconds to finish your thoughts. Bo. Ernie's the timekeeper.
Is this on? I'm Bo Delk, I live at 173 Rosewood Road, Rosewood, Virginia. Wanted to come up here tonight to mention to you something that I'd like to have included in the minutes so that people will know. We recently lost a true native of Nelson County, John Aubrey Roberts Jr., also known as Johnny. He grew up on Hickory Creek down in Fallbrook. As a kid, worked in the apple orchards, worked cattle, grew up that way. Came to the new high school and graduated in a class of 57 after being in the band and several other functions. Went in the Army for 2 years, served his country in the Army, came back to the Army, went to Virginia Tech, graduated from Virginia Tech, got a degree, came back to Nelson County and started teaching in this county in the middle school and the high school, shop and horticulture plants, FFA involved in that, took kids to many meetings, many conferences where they won, came back with blue ribbons. 30 years teaching in the schools of Nelson County, which we know was not a multi-million-dollar paying job. It was a very important job for what the hundreds of lives that he touched, the kids, and what he taught them and what those teachers taught them. And several of them were at his funeral last Saturday, wearing the FFA jackets with their medals on it that they had won. Then in retirement, as he became an older person, he took charge of the class reunions for Nelson County High School. He organized them. He was on Facebook. He kept everybody informed on who was ill, who was sick, who was in, who was out. And so he got to the point that his family moved into Richmond for 3.5 to 4 years where they could take care of him. He still stayed on Facebook and kept us informed. It's just an outstanding person, true friend of Nelson County. It just touched so many people's lives, and I just wanted to mention it to you so that it goes in the meeting, and maybe in the minutes, and maybe 100 years from now, somebody will come back and read those minutes and say, well, that was a Daniel Boone, or that was a Davy Crockett, in Nelson County, instead of going around somewhere with. Thank you very much. Did I make it?
You did it. Yeah. Good job. All right. Anyone else wish to speak in public comments? This is about anything other than the public hearings.
I'd like to agree with Bud.
My cousin.
What?
He's my cousin.
He was what?
Relative. My relative.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
We didn't know that.
You won't hold it against him?
I would have cut my speech in half.
I
know that.
I know it. All right, anyone else want to speak in public comments? Hearing none, close the public comment section of this here. We're now going to go into public hearings. At this time, we will ask staff to present what's on the agenda. We will then ask the applicant to come up if they're here. Talk a little bit. We'll ask questions of staff and the applicant briefly, and then go to the public hearing. We will open the public hearing and then ask any further questions we may have, and then hopefully do some voting. So, Bill.
This is a request for a special use permit to allow a vacation house on split zone property, of which the majority is zoned R1 residential. There. After Mountain Road, 795 in the North District. This property is 2.16 acres. It was recently subdivided and contains an existing single-family dwelling. The narrative provided by the applicants indicates the dwelling has been vacant for at least 20 years and requires significant renovation to be deemed livable again. The narrative also indicates that the owners intend to use it as a personal residence in the long term. and are currently located less than half an hour away. The owners recently acquired the property and are proposing to utilize the dwelling as a vacation house, which is a short-term rental, less than 30 days. Vacation house is a by right use if it were majority zoned A1, but because it's majority zoned R1 is why we need the special use permit. The property is not permitted to be subdivided and cannot place any more dwellings on the property. Area is residential in nature with some agriculture, located near Avon. There are no floodplains. Last year in 2022, SUP 690 for a vacation house in R1, also on Acton Mountain Road, was approved by the board. It's accessed by an existing private entrance. There's existing septic and well on the property. And the comprehensive future land use map is located in an area designated rural residential. At their meeting in April, the Planning Commission recommended approval 5-0 with an additional year to establish the use, which would give them 2 years from the date of approval. The reason being there are significant renovations that need to be done. And as always, your criteria for special use permit.
All right. Is the applicant here? Come on up, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Deke Ely, Richard, my wife Nancy, and just want to say thank you guys for doing the hard work at keeping Nelson County great. We're here because we hope to become part of the community. We've loved this area for 40 plus years. We live a half hour up the road, but we've wanted to be down here in retirement. We're a few years away still. Nancy's 32 years into teaching second graders. So basically, we came across this house that is, it belongs on this land. It's part of the fabric of Nelson County. You look at this farmhouse, these folks, they farmed it for a very long time. I'd like to see it still be there, and I'd like to be able to enjoy it, and I'd like everybody who comes by that property and drives down Acton Mountain Road to be able to see it, see part of old Nelson County. But it's a big lift. The more we are looking at it, the bill keeps going up, and it'll be a few years before we can live here and put the kind of money into it that it's going to take to not tear it down. We need to have a way to help cover some of those costs, and we want to be able to use it as a special use, a special use permit to be able to use it as a vacation home that we can rent until we're able to be here. And that won't be till after we're retired, though. It's just the reality. We do plan to be here very frequently, weekends and holidays. Again, we're less than a half hour drive, so we can be here. If there's any trouble, we definitely want to be good neighbors, because these are going to be our neighbors for a long time. Right now, there are no homes on the adjacent properties. They are just big lots, but we look forward to having neighbors when they decide to build there, and everybody will have our phone number to be able to get in touch with us if we ever do have a problem with the renter. And we'll have rules and keep a good eye on what's going on down here. I know that there's a lot of concern over existing housing not being available enough, people losing existing housing to special use or to vacation homes here in Nelson. This is a little different in that it's been empty for so long. It's not much of an existing house. It needs to be. We're already tearing off the drywall and everything because it's been exposed to the elements and has not been lived in for 20 plus years. But we want to save it, and we want to be your neighbors.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant before we go to the public hearing? Here now, let's go to the public hearing. Thank you, guys. Have a seat real quick. All right, we are now going to open up the public hearing for special use permit number 898, vacation house. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak? Hearing none, we'll now close the public hearing for special use permit 898 vacation home. Does the board have any questions for the applicant or staff this time? All right, do we?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the special use permit.
898.
Yes,
Vacation house. All right, so you want to approve with the planning commission's conditions?
right.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes.
A second from Mr. Barkley. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great day. All right, moving on to special use permit number 899, outdoor entertainment venue.
This is a request for a special use permit to allow an outdoor entertainment venue for weddings on property zoned A1 agriculture at 3578 South Powell's Island Road in the South District. This property is 111.57 acres. The engineer for the project is AccuPoint Surveying and Design. The owner is Zach Morse. The property currently contains an existing single-family dwelling. This is the whole property, and that's the zoom in of the insert. So here's an existing dwelling. The owner is proposing to construct a 5,000 square foot venue for the purpose of hosting weddings. Category 1 and Category 2 events, exempt events such as social temporary events, those are all permitted by right in the A1 agriculture district without permanent facilities or infrastructure. The construction of the venue constitutes the need for the special use permit. The owner is also proposing to construct 4 one-bedroom cabins to be utilized as vacation houses. Dwellings and the short-term rental of them are permitted by right, so that aspect should not be considered with this SUP request. The area is residential and agricultural in nature. Zoning in the vicinity is A1. There are no floodplains. Should the special use permit be approved, a major site plan would come back to the planning commission due to the size of the structure. Property is accessed by an existing entrance on South Powell's Island Road. A speed study submitted by AccuPoint was accepted by VDOT and will be utilized for the design of the commercial entrance. Parking requirements indicate 1 space for each 100 square feet of area. The calculation will be confirmed upon site plan approval. There's existing septic and well on the property that serves the existing dwelling, but new proposed septic and drain field will serve the proposed event venue as well as the cabins, and the engineer is currently working with the health department. The site plan indicates the approximate limits of disturbance of 1.75 acres, which requires approval of an erosion and sediment control plan and a stormwater management plan by DEQ. SUP 326 for a similar event venue on Irish Road was approved by the board without conditions in August of 2021. The board did grant a 1-year extension on the SUP approval to allot enough time for the DEQ stormwater plan review. This allowed the owner up to 2 years to diligently pursue construction, and that associated site plan was approved in January 2023. The property is located in an area designated rural and farming in the future land use map. At their meeting in April, Planning Commission recommended approval 5-0 with an additional year to establish the use, which would give them 2 years from approval.
Will the applicant please come up?
Good evening, my name is Amy Seib. I'm the principal engineer and majority partner at AccuPoint Surveying and Design. Mr. Zach Morse is also here as well in the audience and can help answer any questions if you have those. Dylan gave a great presentation, so I'll just follow up with some of the details. The venue will be agriculture in nature. Because it's 111 acres, the Morse family would like to keep this in the nature of farmland. And is also considering some conservation as well as other types of farming that are for agricultural use specifically allowed by right. So Mr. Morse's brother, Daryl, also lives in owns the adjacent property, so this is contiguous to his land. So We have evaluated the drain fields and found there's sufficient area for the cabins and the event barn, as Ellen mentioned. So we feel that those will be more than adequate to serve those. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions. We did request the extension just because of the DEQ timeframe. It takes a little longer these days, so we just want to make sure we get that split. So
What was that time frame?
I think it was an extra year.
2 years.
So 2 years total, yeah.
All right, applicant have anything?
So make it short and simple, this, born and raised in Nelson County. Went away for 40 years, tired of that. Growing through, always had dreams of being a farmer, one of those sort of things, but first year I got a house, I went to work for a farmer here in Nelson County. And he told me, he said, son, I'll give you a farm, livestock and barrel, but you still be hard to make it. And I'm looking at that, okay? But it comes true and true each and every day as you go in the world and you witness things and see things, and make you come back to where you grew up with ideas. And even with the USDA today, stating that, agriculture, tourism, you got to bring the people to the farm in order to make a profit today. And that's some of the things that I've seen in Pennsylvania, Maryland, and West Virginia, throughout my travels through the United States and the world too. But you got to bring the people to the farm in order to make it today. Agriculture business. So we still plan to farm, but we got to make decisions to make money. And that's the bottom line. We got to make money in order to survive. And it's a tough industry in agriculture. So just here today to ask you guys to your support and help us to achieve this goal.
Tell your brother.
Yeah,
That's what I thought.
show your brother.
Where's he at? That's the first thing I give him a hard time.
The bill broke down.
Yeah.
It's now expensive. Just paid $700 to get the service now. That's putting on the first bill too.
That's right. There I used to work for my granddaddy on the pig farm over in Shipman. Yeah, Troy, yeah. Oh, did you work there too?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
So I don't think we could bring people to our farm. Probably people would want to come visit the pig farm.
No, you don't know that.
That's right. Any questions for Mr. Morris?
No, this is a really ambitious thing to do. To know the family is to know that they can do it. And just wish the best of luck of that. For that area of the county to have something like that,
It's right.
it could be really good for everyone.
We just have another piece of parcel across the road from us, 57 acres. A guy from California bought it. It's on the market for less than a week.
Yeah.
And
How many Yorkshires do you think you can put on this farm?
although the price of pigs is going to move sky high, they're going to make just the pig fat.
I understand. All right, well, I have to talk to
They
the granddaddy
make
about
it
that.
good to be back in the pig business.
That's all right. I think Rutherford's out of that one now.
Yeah.
If there's no other questions, let's go on to the public hearing. Thank you, sir. All right, see. All right, we will now open the public hearings for special use permit 9899, outdoor entertainment venue. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Hearing none, we will now close the public comment section in reference to special use permit 899, outdoor entertainment venue. Yeah, I'm all about this. It's just gonna, he's got to put at least two Yorkshires on. I don't think we can put that on there.
I make a motion to.
You're gonna make a motion to approve as presented with the conditions provided by the planning commission. Is that good with you? On 890. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Second from Mr. Harvey. Any further discussion? Any no discussion, we'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Upton?
Yes. Thank y'all. Have a good one. Have my granddad call you. We'll drop off some tickets.
Okay.
All right, moving on to special use permit 927, single family dwelling.
This is a request for a special use permit to allow an addition to an existing single-family dwelling on property zone B1 business, 117 Center Hill Lane in Gladstone in the South District, owned by Ricky and Judy McFadden. Property contains an existing single-family dwelling that was constructed in the 50s. Single-family dwellings require special use permit in the B1 district. Therefore, the use is now considered non-conforming. The ordinance states that a non-conforming use cannot be expanded or enlarged in any way that increases its non-conformity. Therefore, the special use permit is required to permit the requested addition. There are no side yard setback requirements in the B1 district when adjoined by other B1 property. There is residential in nature with some agriculture. The area joins the railroad and the James River. Zoning in the area is B1 business. That's the red. It's this whole neighborhood right here. And here's the house we're talking about. Yellow is R1 residential, and everything else is agriculture. The property is accessed by an existing private entrance. There's existing septic and well. The property is located in an area designated rural and farming, and the future land use map. At their meeting in May, the Planning Commission recommended approval 5-0 with no conditions to the Board of Supervisors.
All right. Is the applicant here?
Yeah.
It's Ricky McFadden, 117 Summer Hill Lane, Gladstone. Reason why this business to get handicapped in-laws and also some walk also. And mine's a parent, we're gonna have a parent because the wife says she's not putting her parents in the nursing home. So we need another bathroom because can't get a wheelchair in the one we already have. So that's the reason we applied for the permit.
I didn't build your house, did I? I built Josh's house. Are you kin to the McFaddens and all the Gladstone?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
built Ricky's house.
Great. God, okay, I saw the name, I had to make sure I wasn't abstaining, so.
That's the oldest son.
I got you. Okay, it wasn't yours. Good. I was just seeing that name and I had to think about it for 2 seconds. Sounds good. Any questions for the applicant before we go to the public hearing? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, we will now open up the public hearing for special use permit 927, single family dwelling. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Hearing none, we will now close the public comment section at this time. What was the pleasure of the board? Skip, I think this is in your district, right?
Yeah. I make a motion we approve.
Special use permit 927 with the conditions provided. With no conditions. Okay, all right, special use permit 927. Great. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second for Mr. Reed. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes. Have a good one. All right, moving on to special use permit number 928 brewery.
All right, this is a request for a special use permit in property zone B1 business to allow brewery use within an existing structure at 2188 Rockfish Valley Highway in the Central District. This property is 3.23 acres, owned by the Phillips. Valley Mont Holdings LLC is the management agency for all the businesses on the property. And the applicant is Eli Ibrahimi, who's not able to be here this evening. Special use permit 2019-03 was approved by the Board of Supervisors on January 14, 2020, with the condition that the total square footage for both public space and production area was not to exceed 1,200 square feet. The former owner was not able to establish the use within the required 1-year time frame before he passed away, and therefore the special use permit expired. The applicants proposed the same request to carry out Fred Phillips' vision. There's a building. You can see 151 is up here. And then if you flip around, 151 is down here, you're looking at the building. Blue Ridge Pigs on this end, this is the brewery location. There is commercial, residential, and agricultural in nature. Current uses on this property include multiple long-standing commercial operations, residential units, storage, and agricultural buildings. The western boundary of the property is located in a floodplain, however, there are no structures in the floodplain. The property is accessed from Rockfish Valley Highway. The entrance directly north of the car wash is then closed as previously recommended by VDOT, and they did not have any additional comments. The property is served by private well and septic systems. The health department indicated an engineer will be required to assess the current operation and capacity of the system to determine if it is sufficient or requires modification for the brewery. Now, this Ford area is designated as the county's only neighborhood mixed-use development model. And the future land use map also includes an area labeled south of Nellis Ford, which is designated as a rural residential district model. At their meeting in May, the Planning Commission recommended approval 5-0 to the board with the condition that the total area for the brewery is limited to 1,200 square feet maximum and contingent on health department approval.
All right. Is the applicants here?
They are not here this evening.
All right. Any questions for Dylan?
What are your recommendations?
Well, the Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval. It was approved in 2019 as well, or beginning of 2020. Since it's the same application, staff recommendation would be to approve it.
Do you perceive with any problems in the application?
I did not.
Okay. Let's go to the public hearing real quick. All right. We will now open the public hearing for special use permit number 928. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in reference to special use permit 928? Hearing none, we'll now close the public hearing for special use permit 928. Is there any further questions for staff? If
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve permit number 928.
with the conditions from the planning commission.
It's the same condition.
All right, sounds good. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Reed. Any further discussion? Any other discussion? We'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Barton? Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes. All right. Moving on to special use permit number 934, vacation house.
This is a request for a special use permit to allow vacation house use in an existing dwelling on property zoned R1 residential located at 333 Sunrise Drive in Afton in the North District, owned by James and Nicole Boyer. The property contains an existing single-family dwelling. The narrative provided by the applicants indicate that they primarily use the dwelling as a second home to visit family in the area, and in the long term intend to relocate there for retirement. They're requesting to utilize the dwelling as a vacation house or a short-term rental with a maximum of 4 guests. According to the application, the adjoining dwellings are currently utilized as long-term rentals, and the family in the area would be caretakers of the home when the owners are not in town. There is residential in nature with some agricultural uses. As you can see, the north side of Sunrise Drive is zoned A1 agriculture, while the south side is zoned R1 residential. There are no floodplains. The property is accessed by an existing shared entrance on Sunrise Drive. There's existing well and septic. The property is located just south of Avon, an area designated rural residential. At their meeting in May, the Planning Commission recommended approval 4-1 of the special use permit to the board.
All right. Any questions? Any questions for staff before we ask the applicant to come up?
What was the objection of the person who voted against it?
It wasn't stated specifically, but from what I understand, they felt that it wasn't an appropriate land use for this area.
Let's have the applicant come up.
Jim Boyer, 333 Sunrise.
Oh, boy.
So I had prepared some comments, but you pretty much aced it, so thanks. Appreciate that. We're here before you, just as she said, just we want to be able to offset some expenses here in our home. Mr. Reed was obviously there. We first approached this really just starting out with getting a business license, being able to pay taxes. We didn't realize, all that was involved in it, but, we're happy to be here and, put ourselves before you for your consideration. Probably the only thing I would add to the dwelling is there is parking for 3 vehicles, so I know it's a shared driveway, but, with a maximum occupancy of 4, 3 cars should be sufficient. That's pretty consistent with other dwellings in the area too, as far as number of occupants and whatnot. We did speak to the Weirs at 331 and the Parsons at 381, excuse me. And both their tenants, all of them are supportive of it, right? And they're like, hey, we rent, so why can't you use sort of their attitude of it? So, and then I've been doing some homework, and I know you're interested in Mr. Rutherford, in how many Airbnbs and short-term rentals in the area. So there's, actually after the 164, right? This weekend, there's only 8 available. So that's actually like potential revenue and, commerce and potentially leading if they're not able to accommodate local stuff here, so.
I live on Sunrise Drive on 2005. There's about 8, 9 rented on those swings. And I kind of know the area pretty well. And I love the area. I moved to Maryland now. When I met him, I kind of dragged him back and hopefully we can relocate down here. Be close to my family. My mom's sick right now. I have lots of brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews down here. So we're down here all the time.
Any questions for the applicant before we move on?
I got, well, how many bed and breakfasts were in the area?
You can go on a website called AirDNA, which has I know you guys are looking for how to aggregate the information. So you can just put in Acton, it'll show you like a map of
Yeah, but
those.
what was
It's 164, I think like 150 or so of them were actually whole homes.
and only 8 were available?
I think it was 8 under $300 this weekend. I think 17 in total this weekend. So it's like a 90% occupancy in that area. So I think you said there was something like 900 in total. I think that you got to include Wintergreen probably into that. But,
I can
I used to work at hotels, so.
Rick?
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for them before they go? Okay, we'll open up the public hearing. We will now open up the public hearing for special use permit 934 vacation house. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on the special use permit? Okay, hearing none, we will close special use permit number 934 vacation house. What's the board want to do?
This is my area. I move that we approve the request.
Special use
Yeah.
permit 934. Were there any conditions from as presented? Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Reed. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, we'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Martin? Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. Now we're getting to the meat of this agenda.
Oh, rezoning,
Oh, yeah.
whatever number that was withdrawn this afternoon. The rezoning on River Road,
Yeah, no. What was it? Is it zone B1?
it's currently zoned A1. They're requesting a rezoning to industrial, and planning commission did unanimously recommend denial.
Okay.
Okay, so we have 2 ordinances this evening. One is a zoning ordinance, one is a subdivision ordinance. The impetus of this was for a family division. It has to be granted from an individual to an individual, father to son, husband to wife. You can't do it from an entity such as an LLC or a trust. The state code allows localities to adopt an ordinance that permits a family division to be gifted to the beneficiary of a trust. That was the impetus for this. That's pretty much just aligning our code with state code, and we'll revisit that one in just a minute. But up first is the zoning ordinance, which was an afterthought of the planning commission, where they're proposing to increase the minimum lot size for family divisions from 1 acre to 2 acres in both A1 and R1 zoning districts. Currently, a regular subdivision, the minimum lot size is 2 acres for both A1 and R1. This proposed zoning ordinance would increase the minimum lot size for family divisions from 1 acre to 2 acres. That's the first ordinance you have this evening.
Okay, so increasing it from 1 acre to 2 acres.
And the planning commission in March voted 3-2 to recommend approval with some dissent on this minimum lot size issue.
Any questions? You guys want to go to the public hearing and start asking questions? All right, let's do that. You done? We will now open up the public hearing for ordinance O 2023-03, right? Amanda? Amendments to Appendix A zoning, Article 4 agriculture A1, and Article 5 residential district R1. I have not kept up with who's
Did you
speaking.
read the right one?
Yes, it's a correction.
There is a correction on G and H. It's O 2023-03, not 02. And then the following, yeah. And then the following one is ordinance O 2023-04. Okay, so we just have that minor correction on the agenda. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak in reference to O 2023-03? Rock, paper, scissors, guys.
I'll say something to that. I'm Mark Franklin. I'm at 723 Shakers Hollow Lane in Roseland, Virginia. The only thing I'll say, by reducing the lot size or increasing the lot size of a family division in a county where you have housing affordability issues, you further hinder people's ability to have housing opportunities and put further hurdles in the path to their housing opportunities. That's it.
All right, anybody else?
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Russ Nixon. I'm with Nixon Land Surveying. I'm also the president of the Virginia Association Surveyor Southern Chapter. Dylan reached out to many of us in my association and in our industry across the state and across the county. One of the things I'm also on the Board of Zoning Appeals for Campbell County. I'm not a Nelson County resident, but I feel pretty strongly about protecting the family unity. Back when the family subdivision regulations were established by the state of Virginia, the main goal was to protect the family unit and allow family members to be able to subdivide land off, make it a more streamlined process, and also make it more affordable for those folks to own and retain the property that their parents, aunts, uncles, cousins may have bought and purchased for the purpose of sharing with their family. One of the questions that come up is we want to increase that lot size to 2 acres. Currently, Nelson County's ordinance, as Dylan said, is 2 acres minimum lot size in agricultural, 2 acres minimum lot size in R1. That's a huge contrast from other counties and localities on area size. I understand the 2 acre lot size minimum in agricultural. What I don't understand is a 2 acre minimum lot size in residential zoning. Most of the time, regardless of circumstances around the parcel, the residential lot is typically smaller. I know in your ordinance today, you're allowed 30,000 square feet if you have existing sanitary sewer. Now, sanitary sewer in Nelson County is obviously not very prevalent everywhere, So that does cause some issues. I would like to see this board address a way to reduce the minimum lots, maximum lot size or minimum lot size in R1 down to a smaller lot and allow for the health department drain field designs to dictate the size of that parcel. And I'll give you some examples. In Campbell County, our minimum lot size in R1, you got to move back up. Usually in an R1 situation, you'll have either water or sewer. In Campbell County, if we don't have water and sewer, the minimum lot size is 1 acre in residential. In agricultural right now, they have a 2.5 acre lot minimum size. Some of the issues we're having with family divisions in Campbell County is that someone may own a 3 acre lot and a family member wants to deed them a piece of land, they're allowed to do a 1/2 acre minimum lot size to that family member, retaining 2.5 acre lot size for a resident. I would urge this county to protect the citizens, as this gentleman spoke here, to reevaluate that thought of saying minimum lot size to a family member is going to be 2 acres. I think it hurts the continuity between the family members. I'm going to give you an example. This week it happened to me. The Turners live on an 8-hour road, and the mother has a will that's written that she wants to give one sister, Toya, a 1 acre lot, and the other sister, Avetta, a 1 acre lot. Well, Miss Turner only owns 2 acres. She can't do a family division because at that point, once you cut a 1 acre lot off, what's left with the home that's there is only 1 acre. So I had to contact them on the way here tonight and tell them that I could not do the survey for them. I could not produce a family division plan, and they didn't understand. And that's one of the things that I fight, and you all as board fight, is the layperson don't understand why they can't do what they want to do with the property. But I want to urge you all to turn down the 2 acre minimum lot size for family divisions. I think it will hurt folks in the long run. I think with the housing market the way it is right now, it's so volatile. I believe that this type of change could hurt folks in the long run. And we're not talking about 2 years from now. I'm talking about 5, 8, 10, 20 years from now. I believe it could be a big impact and hurt the county. Anyway, if y'all have any questions, I've got full statutes from the state here. And some of it is about the trust that y'all want to discuss, the family trust. As a matter of fact, in the state statute, it actually talks about.
You got 30 seconds.
Under 15.2-2244-2, it talks about the locality may require that subdivided lots for a family division be no more than 1 acre and otherwise meets any other express requirement contained in the Code of Virginia. I recommend you turn down the 2 acre minimum lot size for family division. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else wish to speak? Hearing none, we will close the O 2023-03. I'm just going to say minimum lot size requirements for A1 and R1. So, as someone who's been in the construction business since I was about 6 years old, selling double wides and single wides, I can't tell you how many times it was a family lot zoning that was able to get a working class family, their uncle, aunt, whatever it was, could gift that little piece of land to their relative, and they actually got to celebrate homeownership. This is a very common story, especially amongst our poor demographics. More often than not, if you're an affluent demographic, you're not subdividing 1 acre lots to your son. You're sending probably 20 acres, 50 acres, in which case it wouldn't apply. I would venture to say that this context of 1 acre is meant for the low-income folks. I just built a double wide on Tie River Road. That was an old family parcel that passed down from grandma to kid to grandkid, and it was meant for grandma. Grandma had a house. Well, kid also had a house. Well, they worked out perfect because then it gifted it down to the grandkid, and the grandkid got to live in the same family context. I do understand the anxiety with the 2 acre versus 1 acre as it relates to septic systems and alternative methods that might exist. More than likely, someone's not going to subdivide a 1 acre lot if it didn't have a reasonable perk. More often than not, that's just not going to be the case. If it's so small and the soils are so bad that it requires an engineered system, then they're probably going to either not parcel it out at all, are, they're gonna try to expand that to where it's more fertile soil, are for a lesser impact engineered system. So, I do agree, with the sentiment of 1 acre lots. I don't think it's gonna hamper us. I think it'll benefit, natives.
It's common sense, what you said and what they said. I mean, it's all common sense. I saw it as a kid. We lived in the city, and my parents moved out to the country. And by our moving to the country, it became the suburbs. And my parents, thinking that they were protecting what they had or whatever, passed ordinance that increased the size of lots. And I just went back to my 50th high school reunion 6 years ago. And there was nobody from my high school who lived in that town anymore because they couldn't afford it. And I think we have to be sympathetic to that idea that I don't think it will impact the rural nature of this county. I think in some ways it might be more legitimate way in which to create places where people can live. So I agree. I don't think it's too bad.
Well, to do 2, keep it at
I
1.
want to keep it 1 acre is certainly sufficient.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to a few things that came up during the planning commission. One of them is that the world is a little bit of a different place than it may have been 20, 30, 40 years ago. And the financial pressure on a family member who gets a subdivided property could turn into, a flip, which is which can increase pressures on, in the area, not as it was intended, of course, but the outcome could be quite different than what's intended. And as we know, the housing situation that we now have in Nelson County is certainly not what it was intended to be. It's something that's taken on a life of its own. The other is the 2 acres would make it more uniform across the other, across all the zones. And so that was something else that was brought up during the discussion. Just wanted to bring those up so that you have a chance to hear those.
Yeah, I mean, and I can understand the uniformity context. I think one thing, more often than not, in the event you have a perfect 1 acre and you're able to do it, it's great. More often than not, you're going to have scenarios where it's like 1.5 acres because they need that extra little bit to meet the threshold for our 100% reserve, which Nelson County requires. I just, if you got 5 acres and you want to give one of them, I just think I'd still give 1 acre for folks. Yeah. Tommy, what do you think? You don't think?
No one changed it.
No, it's always been 1. Correct? It's always been 1 acre, Mr. Harvey.
I thought it was something that required 2 acres. Agricultural.
Neither.
That's other than a family.
This is a family subdivision.
Any other subdivision, minimum lot size is 2.
Right, any other subdivision will be 2 acres. This one would be, so if you live on whatever road and you got 20 acres that's been passed down, you got 4 kids, and some of it's all buttoned up against good, but you could subdivide 1 or 2 acres out for those individuals by right. And it has to go to that relative. It can't go immediately to what Mr. Reed was referencing, flip. Like, you can't just subdivide it. There's a threshold of time that has to last before something like that can happen.
What's that threshold?
It's 5 years.
5 years. And I think that's on the next item.
It's also different.
Okay.
Yeah, currently, family division, minimum lot size is 1 acre with a 5-year restrictive covenant where they can't transfer it outside the family. Regular subdivision is 2 acres.
And they have to provide this to you, right? Before they do a family subdivision? Like, all right, let's say I got the 20 acres and I want to do 2 1-acre lots for my kids. Do they have to present that to you, or they can just record it with the?
No, it has to go through our office for review.
Yeah.
Anytime lots are created or lot lines are changed, goes through our office. And I'll also add that we're not permitted to approve a subdivision until the health department
Yes.
has approved the drain field and the reserve area.
Right. So it's got to have that approval anyway. How many family subdivisions do you see you do a year?
Quite a few.
Really? You see, that's good. That's awesome.
I will say they're not often 1 acre. I don't see that very often, but we do see it.
It's got to be a good lot with good drain fields and good dirt, so. I don't know, I say we keep it at the 1 acre.
Well, just for the record, I will make a motion.
Okay.
And I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance O2023-02, Nelson County Board of Supervisors amendment for the Code of Nelson County Appendix A zoning, Article 4, Agricultural District A1, and Article 5, Residential District 5.
All right, and that's with the 2 acres, right?
Yes,
He's making a motion for the 2 acres.
I'm making a motion that we approve.
What's presented? All right, we have a motion, do we have a second? I have a second. Can we make a motion for the 1 acre?
Well, you don't have to, you just keep it the same way.
You would make a motion to deny.
Oh, we would make a motion to deny this, and it would stay exactly the same.
Correct.
Great, all right, yeah.
I'm making a motion.
All right, we have a motion to deny. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Harding. Any further discussion? Hearing none. So voting yay, yes is no. Got it. All right, go ahead, roll call vote.
Mr. Harden.
Vote yes. That means no.
Yeah.
You just told me how this works.
It's a motion to deny.
Yes, good job.
Mr. Harden.
He said yes.
Yes. Mr. Barton.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
No.
Mr. Rutherford.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so the minimum lot size for family divisions in A1 and R1 will stay at 1 acre.
Yes, that was the end. All right, moving on to H, and this is, again, we changed the number, ordinance O 2023-04, amendments to Appendix B subdivision, Section 3, administration. Oh, yeah, it is.
All right. As I said before, any subdivision of land, a cluster division, a boundary line adjustment, a lot line vacation, and family divisions, all are reviewed administratively by my office. Virginia code provides certain protections to reduce requirements. Currently, our subdivision ordinance requires a minimum access width of 30 feet, whereas the Code of Virginia actually only allows localities to require no less than 10 and no more than 20 feet. The code also allows localities to adopt an ordinance that would permit family divisions of land to beneficiaries and trusts. The purpose of this would be to allow a family division to be sold or gifted to the beneficiary of a family trust, which would carry a 15-year restricted covenant, and additionally reduce the access width requirement from 30 feet to 20 feet for family division.
Okay. So that, okay. So,
Within that,
say Jesse Company's not part of the family, we're completely buy a lot in that, does that change it back to?
You mean if there was a family division and somebody wanted to sell it outside the family?
Right.
They would either have to wait for 15 years, or they can go to the planning commission and ask for a reduction based on their circumstances. So if someone was a beneficiary of a trust and was gifted a lot, they have to hold on to it within the family for 15 years. But if something came up where they needed to sell it for some reason, they could come to the planning commission and say, here's why I need to sell this land, and the planning commission could allow them out of that covenant.
And it stops at the planning commission?
Mhm.
So what if the planning commission votes no?
Then the 15 years would stay in place.
So there's no appealing option to like the BZA or board of supervisors?
They could appeal to the BZA,
Okay, so
could
that would be
appeal a
the-
planning commission decision.
Any other questions for Dylan before we open up the public hearing? No, let's open up the public hearing. I now open the public hearing for ordinance 2023-04, amendments to Appendix B subdivision, Section 3, administration. Oh, you were on this list.
No,
You got nothing? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you again. I really wasn't going to address this, but I've been asked to by a fellow surveyor that is part of my association. And he made a pretty good point. His name is Tace Crowd with Actual Surveyors. And he made a pretty good point to me that the U.S. average duration of ownership of properties or housing is 7 to 8 years, plus or minus. And that's average. Now, obviously, I've been in my home 17 years, and it's my wife's farm, and I plan to die there. But I want to state something from the state code, and I'm going to read a sentence to you. And it's based on that 15-year timeline. Now, the state code does recommend a 15-year timeline. However, it says, notwithstanding the provisions of the clause, a locality may reduce or provide exceptions to the period of years prescribed in such clause when changed circumstances so require. With COVID hitting 3 years ago, we saw our entire world flipped upside down, the dynamic of everything we do in our industry, folks losing jobs, people working from home. We've seen so many changes the last 3 years related to what we're talking about here in relationship to how people own and use their property and what they need to do. You had some folks in here who want to do short-term rentals. I've seen folks that have had family divisions done in other counties where the wife may have gotten sick, husband may have gotten sick, they may be in a situation financially that they have to sell it because it may go under foreclosure. I am a cancer survivor. In 1997, I was very sick. My wife and I didn't have health insurance at the time. I was 27 years old. We had our first home. We'd only been in it 2 years. And we were forced to sell our home within that first 5 years of us owning it because of what I was doing. So I want to urge this county to allow for an out. And that out would be that applicant coming back. I don't have a problem with 15 years because it does meet state statute. But I want to make sure it's easy for those folks to be able to go to the planning commission and ask permission to sell it if they have to. I think that's important because you don't want to cut their nose off to spite their face for doing things. Thank you.
All right, anybody else wish to speak?
I'm Mark Franklin at 723 Shakers Hollow Lane, Roseland, Virginia. I'm going to ask the board to pass this ordinance amendment. Again, it's kind of a similar nature, match the county or the state codes, but also it's just makes it easier for families to reach goals with their land use. Thank you.
Anyone else? We'll close the public comment section for H ordinance, item H, ordinance 2023-04. 23-04, amendments to the subdivision section 3, administration. So here's a question. So let's say I build a house, right? I'm thinking of putting my hat on, like Joe the mechanic, Sally the CNA. I just sold my house on one of these lots that we were just talking about. And it says 15 years. So, you know, a lot of my clients, depending on where they're at in their career, they want to kind of like move up. Like they might have 2 kids, 3 kids, and the next thing you know, they want to buy a low-end module, right? We're talking start a 3-pack, 3-bed, 2-bath, 7-12 pitch roof. We're talking about just moving up in equity. Would that 15 years impact them? Would they have to own that double wide for 15 years?
So
Or
the
they could
15
sell it?
years is only when the lot is being gifted or sold to the beneficiary of a family trust.
Okay.
So they would have to own that property. They can transfer it around to the family.
So they couldn't sell that double wide on the regular MLS market
Correct.
without asking the planning commission.
I'm sorry. You're asking about the double wide or the lot?
Well, I'm talking about that lot. I built a house on the lot. Is that 15-year ticker just as it's raw land, or once you put a house on it, it's out of the whole family ordinance thing?
It's the lot.
It's the lot. So I build a house on it, all the rules are gone.
No, the lot stays. And
So I can't sell my house.
correct.
See, and I don't like that. Because the next part of homeownership is realizing gains in your equity, you know, and there's a good reason why you are not tax capital gains as an individual and after 2 years of ownership of your home. And it's so that those demographics can realize that equity and upgrade their life, whether that's refinancing debt, whether that's paying off a car, student loans. If you put someone, and I'm not, listen, don't get me wrong, I support the whole that family unit being stuck in one spot, but also most of my family came and left, right, and then came back. And some of them had to sell their homes on the farm to get to that next step in their business, or whatever that is. I think my concern is that moving up for these individuals, they could find themselves stuck, you know. And it would also be really interesting, and obviously a bank wouldn't necessarily know the context of the 15 years, but banks might have an issue with that. So, all right, let's play the scenario. I build a house on it, and then the client has to foreclose.
So in that scenario, they can come to the planning commission. It says they reduce the period of years prescribed when changed circumstances so require.
Yeah, but I don't think a bank is going to care. Like, let's say they default on their house. Bank's going to put that on the regular market. They're not looking for your next 6 cousins.
I think that's what this is saying, is when the circumstances require it,
Yeah.
we have, the planning
They have
commission
to-
has to allow it.
And the bank has to ask permission of the planning commission to foreclose and then sell it?
I think it's the bank asking permission. Whoever owns the property.
Yeah, but let's say that person skipped town. They're gone. They ain't coming back. We're talking straight up default. They haven't
I
paid.
am not a lawyer.
I know that. I'm just painting the picture of a 15-year situation. Like,
So what's gonna happen in that situation? You're gonna already be in default because the bank's gonna own it.
oh yeah, no, I understand. Bank's gonna, yeah.
I recommend, like your ordinance is now about family division, it's 5 years, minimum ownership. I recommend you do the same thing with trust. Bedford County has a 5-year timeline.
All right, sounds good. We can't talk to public.
Sorry.
But got it. I appreciate that. I'm just saying, like, 15 years is real, and that's half a mortgage in most instances, and that's half a mortgage, and people can't realize their equity. You know, I think if you put it 5 years, that gives people a reasonable amount of time to live 1/6 of their mortgage life, or whatever, and then they can go on to that next step. I just think 15 years is.
It's not that simple, because families always don't get along.
Oh, that's true too.
And.
What happens if one of your
someone,
relatives?
Wants to,
I just think.
I think what possible is compromise.
All right, pick a number.
10,
7.
8.
Um,
Let's study this a little bit more.
I don't mind passing this one down for another month.
Yeah.
we got the first one done, the second one we can bring up again next meeting. But, I mean, you guys kind of hear what I'm saying with the whole equity realization, because in the working class Nelsonian, like, that's a real next step in life. So, all right.
Just to say that as it's written, it doesn't include that.
Yeah. So can I go sell my house? It's basically saying I gotta go ask permission to go sell my house. I can't turn around and,
Yes.
listen, you have to go, yeah, I gotta wait 2 months maybe, you know, whatever that might be from the point of application. I mean,
I'm just saying,
I don't-
there's a reason that, 15 years is in the state code,
I don't,
And there's,
I
and
think
there's
Ron's
some.
idea of thinking it over.
And that, well, can I finish my thought?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, because, one of the things is, having continuity with the state code does have value, And if we're going to have something that's not consistent with the state code, I think we have to have a real good, solid reason to do it. And the out, where you have to go to the planning commission to say, these are the circumstances under which I would like to be able to do this, provides that.
I agree with you.
I mean, I'm not against that idea, but if you put yourself in the shoes of that person who just all of a sudden couldn't pay their mortgage for 3 months, and they try to go sell it, and instead they're dealing with a whole bunch of government mechanisms saying, you can't sell this, you gotta ask us for permission, they might just simply throw their hands up and exit. And then exactly the scenario we're talking about, the bank's gonna own it and throw it on the regular MLS. So like,
That's why we have a planning commission.
But the
A planning and zoning that can walk people through what the options are.
I understand what you're saying, I'm just saying like, the bank is not gonna care. They're gonna, yeah.
I'll just know and
You're
I
you're
will,
acting like banks want to foreclose.
Oh, when they owed money, they prefer it.
But they're not gonna make money by foreclosing.
They're trying not to lose too much money, it's the only thing.
I will look into this if you choose
Yeah.
to defer it, but on first glance, well, not first glance, but reading through the state code language again, I'm not sure you have the authority to reduce the 15 years in the ordinance. It says, must the immediate family members as defined agree that the property should be subdivided and agree to place a restrictive covenant on the subdivided property that prohibits the transfer to a non-member for a period of 15 years. Then it gives you the option to add the language that a locality may reduce or provide exceptions to the period of years when changed circumstances so require. So we replace locality with planning commission. You could give that right to the board, and like I said, if you choose to defer it, I'll confirm that. But the way I'm reading it, I'm not sure you.
I wouldn't even have the authority to say, it. I would like to confirm that.
Okay.
And I'd like to see what that mechanism is. Like, for example, further than that, one of the more common ways people will lose a lot that's in a family subdivision is tax liens, right? It's now got 20 legacy folks on it. You had 7 kids and those kids had 4 kids each. You got 21 people you gotta go get signatures for. So it becomes a tax lien, then it becomes a sale. I'm just curious, and I just hate seeing that scenario where for them, it's so limited because of that deed of covenant that you just might as well just sit there and wait until it's worth it for the treasurer of Nelson County to just default on it and sell it at tax auction.
But I think it just is, you don't automatically understand an issue. I think Tommy's idea of
I'm fine with waiting.
putting it off makes a lot of sense.
Let's put it off till July. Can we continue this? Yes. Can we make a motion? Do we need to motion this, or can we just general consensus for it?
I think you just
All
don't
right,
take any
just don't
action.
take it. All right, we're not taking action, we'll bring it up in July.
I do have a,
Yes.
when this matter's over, I have a question.
All right. I feel like it's done. Are you done?
I'm done.
On this H, are y'all done? All right, sounds good, moving on. All right.
Okay. The previous ordinance, which was not passed, the clause that has to do with land held in trust, that's still an unresolved issue since that has not been adopted, is that true?
land held in trust?
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah, because that still is an issue that I believe needs to be clarified. And I didn't make that point, I'm sorry that I didn't when we were discussing that. But
Which issue, I'm sorry?
the trust, when, selling it to a non-family member of the trust. Okay, so that's still an issue that I think remains unresolved since we didn't adopt that ordinance. I'm wondering if, I guess
Is there a part of that?
that's right.
Which is part of
This,
that.
the final paragraph, which was in addition to, and,
Oh, that was 15 years.
right.
Well, we now have an open conversation about the 15-year piece.
I'm just wondering, because that's still an unresolved issue, for, divisions and trusts, we're still in a situation where we need to do something to allow that to happen.
Correct. We do have at least one person I'm aware of waiting for the trust provision to be passed. So they won't be able to, we won't be able to permit any of those until and unless the board approves it.
That's that last paragraph, in addition to foregoing provisions, there's a lot of land held in trust. I mean, is there a way we can just adopt that language? Or we kind of need to?
I mean, that's the main part of the ordinance.
That was the main part of the ordinance.
That's
The
the
discussion that we had,
ordinance.
we were arguing about,
1 and 2 acres.
yeah, whereas
That's
the trust issue was really why why it was brought
So,
forward first.
and the people who voted against in the planning commission were probably arguing over the lot sizes, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Too bad we didn't separate those two things out.
What, planning commission?
Yeah.
Would it be possible to, bring it back to the planning commission to redo that, or now that we've?
Well, I mean, they know we've decided the 1 and 2 acres.
That
What,
was
what
from
do you
the-
recommend? What do you recommend we do if that's an issue we still need to take action?
Well, the lot size piece isn't an issue anymore. Don't deny that, that was zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
If there's no action tonight,
Trust still can't do their thing.
there cannot be family division to beneficiary of a trust yet. You would have to vote on this to adopt it.
So vote on this with the language of 1 acre. Could we do that?
No.
No, because.
That's
One
totally
acre is
separate.
separate.
The
That's separate.
acreage, we're done with that.
Got it. All right.
So this is only about the trust piece of it, which, as
Sure.
Mr. Reed mentioned, was the impetus.
Okay. So, what do we do?
So do you
Go back to the planning commission?
Do you have a recommendation that the planning commission break that out and we just look at that separately?
It is separate, right?
The trust
The
part,
trust part is separate from the lot size.
is separate.
It's already separate. There's nothing to do with lot sizes in this ordinance amendment you're looking at
No,
now.
that's me. That's me. Yeah. I see.
So my current understanding is no action, revisit in July, and I can confirm whether or not you can play with that number 15 years.
Yes.
Were there any other potential amendments or anything you want me to look into?
I was fine with everything else other than just the 15 years.
What about the road width? Y'all want to talk about that?
The road width is part of this as well.
I got you. Well, we can talk about that in the next meeting. Deal.
Would you perhaps want to reconsider this?
Would you perhaps want to reconsider this at the June 29th?
Oh, we could do
meeting?
that. We could do that in June. We'll throw that at the June 29th meeting. Because we already have some other things we need to work on anyway. Okay. All right. We'll continue this at June 29th. Sound good? Great. What else do we need to do tonight? Any other business? Andy?
Not for staff. Thank you.
All right, board, y'all good? If so, we need to continue to June 29th at what time? 6. 6? I have 6 on my calendar.
Yes, 6 o'clock.
All right, so someone continue this meeting to June 29th at 6 o'clock in the courthouse. Great.
So moved.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Y'all later.
What other stuff is on the agenda?
We had another